She heard a story on Colorado Public Radio that so inspired her that she wants to share it with you, her fellow Toastmasters. It's a story of tragedy and triumph, of faith in God and commitment to helping others. Diane thinks it will have a special meaning to us at Toastmasters. Please help me welcome Diane, who is giving a CI-10, Inspire Your Audience, as she tells us about the man who didn't listen to his doctor's advice.
Imagine, just imagine that you are young. You're younger even than Elia. You're strong, you're healthy, you're good looking, you're newly married. But it's the middle of the Vietnam War, and your draft notice shows up in the mail. Life is good, but what to do now? You decide, rather than waiting to be taken into the infantry, you will join the Navy. You say goodbye to your 19-year-old wife, and you head off to Vietnam. You become a Navy gunner, a Navy boat gunner. You're a member of the Blackwater Green Berets, an elite group. Your crew members are impressed with your faith in God and your faithfulness to your wife. Life is still good. But one day, as you're out on patrol, you're holding a white phosphorus hand grenade next to your head. You're preparing to throw it into the bushes to burn off the foliage, when all of a sudden a shot rings out and that grenade explodes and it tears off your face. It explodes in your hand. Life as you know it is over. My fellow Toastmasters, this morning I'm going to tell you the true story of what happened to a young Texas named Dave Weaver. I'm going to tell you not only what happened to him, but also what he chose to do after this life event. And then I'm going to share my thoughts and why I think this is important to us as Toastmasters. So the grenade went off, Dave was propelled into the water. Phosphorus continues burning in water, so as he was sinking, his body was burning, and his skin was just shredding off of his body. As he was going down, he heard God talking to him, telling him that it would be okay. And as he surfaced, he said to his crewmates, "I still believe in God." They couldn't believe it because they thought he was dead. But they plucked him out of the water, and he was taken to a hospital in Saigon. In Saigon, the doctors almost didn't do anything for him. They thought he was really just beyond hope, and they should use their talents for someone who had more potential. But then they decided to give him a chance. He eventually was transferred to a hospital in Tokyo, and there he asked for a mirror. When he looked in the mirror and saw what he looked like for the very first time, he was horrified. Half of his face had been blown off. He had no hair, he had no ear, he had no mouth. The other side of his face had second-degree burns, as did his entire upper body. He was just horrified. And this was, as you can imagine, the lowest point of his life. He actually considered suicide at this time. But fortunately, a friend of his who was a missionary came to the hospital and talked with him, gave him hope, gave him some feeling that yes, he could go on. He eventually was taken home to Texas, and here his young wife came to see him for the very first time. Dave was petrified that she would be totally repulsed and she would just leave, and she wasn't. When she saw him, she came up to him, she took his hand, and she gave him a kiss. And she said, "Dave, I will always love you." And she's been true to her word. They've celebrated 44 years of marriage. Dave spent 14 months in the hospital recuperating. When he went home, he had had some reconstructive surgery, but he still looked pretty horrific. He had a false ear, he had scars all over his face, and more importantly, he couldn't show any emotion at all. He couldn't smile, his face would work. So he just had this mask, he was a mask of a man. His doctors told him to go home and stay there. He shouldn't embarrass himself by going out in public. But fortunately, he didn't listen to his doctors. Instead, he became a motivational speaker. He spoke about things that gave people hope. He spoke about love and compassion and kindness and the things we can do in life. And he eventually traveled throughout the world giving these motivational speeches. After 9/11, the Pentagon asked him to work with soldiers, to work with vets. And he has been to Iraq 6 times, he's been to Afghanistan once. He speaks to groups as large as 1,000 or so people. He also does one-on-ones with individual veterans who've been hurt. His latest mission is actually much closer to home. In September of 2007, he and his wife Brenda started a ranch in Westcliff, Colorado, called Eagle Summit Ranch. This ranch is a place where veterans, wounded veterans, can come and stay. And they're taught life skills, they're taught endurance skills. And among the most important life skill that they are taught is public speaking. Dave felt that by teaching the veterans to tell their story, that they could tell it over and over again, that they could become competent at telling their story, that they would heal, their wounds of war would heal, and they would get over their post-traumatic stress. And this has proven to be true. Dave taught them how to have good posture while speaking, how to use body language, how to maintain eye contact, how to use gestures, and how to speak the King's English so they didn't sound like stupid yokels. So he taught them how to present themselves. After each group finishes their course, there is a graduation that the entire town of Westcliff attends, and each young veteran, and some are not so young, each veteran tells his or her story. The audience goes away feeling grateful and feeling inspired, and the veterans go home feeling empowered. They're ready for their life, their future life. So how does that affect us as Toastmasters? Well, we have chosen to improve our public speaking skills. We've gotten public speaking skills by being here in Toastmasters. And this is a gift that we've given ourselves, but it's a gift that we can share. And I encourage each of you and myself to look around to see what we can do that perhaps could make the world a better place. To do something that would channel Dave Reaver and make him proud.